Hey, 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 hey!
It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud. This is our house. We do what we wanna. We'll blow the roof up. Everybody's coming. It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Life is not easy. Life isn't fair. It never was, and it never will be. A good life takes grit, because the best things in life come from hard work, sacrifice, resolve, determination, and perseverance. Because grit means never quitting. It means coming back time and time again until you succeed. So on this show, we talk hunting, we talk outdoors, we talk conservation, we talk family and life. We talk fitness, and we talk strength, strength of body, strength of mind, and strength of character. Prioritize who you are and who you want to be. Get gritty, because life isn't fair, and a little grit can make all the difference. All right, folks, welcome back to the Gritty Podcast. Okay, we're back in house with Ryan Carter. We got some dinner coming to the studio.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we're gonna crank another bit out here for the next 30 to 45 to 60. We'll see where it goes.
Two old elk guys just talking in the coffee shop.
Here we go. So a lot of people wrote in and asked about this bull called Cinco.
Uh-huh.
And tell me a little of this bit backstory on this bull.
Cinco is a giant 5-point, hence the name Cinco. It's real. I'm real clever. Probably one of the
Cinco's
biggest,
a cool name. He kind of has that gangster feel.
Yeah. Oh, so the thing about this bull, now I haven't been watching him a long time. I think my first pictures of him, 14-ish, 16, I walked into him, checking camera.
Okay.
I actually had a hunter with me, and it was preseason. He wanted to come check out the mountain. So we walked in to check these cameras, and here he is laying in this burn right next to a creek. And I just
saw him with the naked eye.
Yeah. So I just bought a new Sony. I had this big lens. I'm like, I'm doing this. So I hurried and set up. And as I'm snapping pictures, he gets up and he walks away, and I posted a few of him just walking away. And he's just, I mean, his thirds are just huge. He's so awesome. The biggest 5-point I've ever seen pictures of, heard of, ever seen personally.
Genetically, he's just a 5.
Yeah.
Repeatedly?
Uh-huh. And so in last year.
So did you just put on mass each year?
Well, so 15, he was just a nice 5. 16, probably a 350, 355 type 5.
Mm-hmm.
16 or 17 last year. I never actually ran numbers on him, but his first 3 points pushing 22 inches long. His G4s were a little short, 18.
Yeah,
if you call that short. But I mean, wide, 48 on his inside.
Oh, jeez.
With probably 56 to 58 inch beams. So, I mean, and he's a good mass bull. Mm-hmm. So I would say he's pushing that 370 mark as a 6-point or as a 5-point.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you had 10-inch G5s, and I mean, you can see where he's going. But as a 5-point, the whale tails were unreal. Probably one of the coolest pictures, coolest bulls with the coolest pictures I've ever gotten. They're all of Cinco. So I can see the hype. When I post that bull, it's fire. Everyone reposts it. Mm-hmm. He is a giant monster of a bull.
Well, and a lot of times what makes a bull spectacular isn't the inches. Mm-hmm. You know, that
never
helps.
The inches. Never,
but it's the character.
Oh,
character all the way.
For me, always.
Like when I look at the fire bull, which is in the foyer here at the office, you see those palmated like looks like fire burning off the
G5 back there.
Yeah. It just gives it this character. You're like, whoa, that's super cool.
And this is something drives me crazy. A lot of people give Eric a lot of hate on that bull because Eric posts it a lot. It's the Hush logo. It's got, I don't think people understand the caliber of bull of it is that bull is unless they've held it. They don't understand those bulls come along. I mean, so very few have ever been killed in that kind of character range. Maybe 3 or 4 are killed a year, and the elk phenomenon, the mule deer have an era, right? The 30s, 40s had kind of an era, the 70s of mule deer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, 200s were dying like flies. Nobody cared about inches except for the fact of width.
Right.
I got him a 30-inch buck. That's all my grandpa ever talked about. I mean, if he was narrow, he's like, And
didn't matter if he was 200 inches. Stickers, he's like.
It's unreal, but that was that era. Now we have an elk era that started in this century. Starting of 2000, there'd only been a handful of 400-inch bulls killed. As you rolled into 2000, Utah didn't even touch it till 03. I think the Wildens and the Mossback killed a bull in 03. I think that was our first actual 400-inch typical. But 03 to 08, I mean, Utah just hammered them out. Arizona was breaking 440 3 or 4 times a year. It was unreal. Nevada had a couple typicals that were in the 420s. They had this era, and then it kind of died off a little bit. That's when the state started issuing these late tags. It shifted the game a little bit, but here our bulls are coming back again. 14 to now has been an amazing kind of another era.
Resurgence.
Still not as good as the early 2000s, but here we are in this elk era, right? So we look at maybe 3 or 4 character bulls a year of firebull status. We're talking under 20 ever. People want to bag on Eric over the firebull. That is one of the character bulls that will live on forever. I don't care what you think about Eric. I know Eric personally. He's like, I don't understand why people wouldn't like this guy. He's the nicest guy on the planet. But I see a little hate over the Hush bull, and that is one of my favorite bulls ever killed.
I think that hate stems from it just stems from jealousy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At the root of it is like the attention that Eric garnered from it breeds jealousy.
It's unreal because he is the nicest guy on the planet.
He really is. And for me, when I see stuff like that, for me, Eric never claimed to be the best elk hunter in the world.
No, I still wouldn't now.
Never. It's not what he said. What that story and that bull represents in my mind is sort of an underdog story, right?
Yep.
He went out and the story's about failing, right? Stuck the bull in the shoulder. Lost him. Gut wrenching, but still
tears, heartbreak.
But your persistence,
prevailed.
You're going to stay there, and you're going to stay there and push through, and then to get redemption.
Same shot, same distance, same everything.
But this time, connecting
1 inch higher, piercing the heart, barely like. I literally, and I know this was closer to home than most people because that was killed not far from my turf, right? Like that's where
your stomping ground, and
like I teared up at that freaking movie theater. Like I remember like watching that, like, oh hell yes, like redemption, like it was amazing. I still feel that way when I watch the film.
And so when someone wears a hat that has that antler on it, to me, it's representing all of that stands behind it.
I agree.
It's like persistence, redemption. It's all that bull branded in that moment from that story. And so to me, when someone says that antler is special to them or they obsess over it, they're not necessarily just obsessing over the unique character of such a spectacular bull, because there's a lot of spectacular bulls. It's the branding that comes with it. It's the meaning behind it.
The success within our industry. And I don't understand the hate, but that, Cinco's a character bull like Firebull.
Well, in those 5x5s, there's a cult group of people who obsess over 5x5 or forked horn, giant forked horn bucks. Like there's Instagram pages dedicated to forked horn stuff.
I love
you know, and I've seen some giant forked horn mule deer, and you're like, and I get excited because they're so rare and unique.
Yeah.
So this bull Cinco, you find him, and how long did you follow him?
So
3 years?
Yeah, and I didn't really put a lot of heart into him till last year. And last year was my unreal year because Stealth Cam put out their 4Ks, and so I have a lot of 4K of Cinco rutting, pushing cows, screaming. I think that's why he's got a lot of hype from my end of it, you know. And I know Stealth Cam's reposted a few of those videos, and there was a lot of hype on that bull. So that's where the request comes from.
So people requested when we told them we were doing this podcast series, people requested to know the story. Where is he at? What's his status? And you went out last weekend, did some reconnaissance.
Yeah, with Cinco in mind. So what's happened with Cinco? Last year, Casey Harbison was in camp with us. Casey got an unreal, amazing experience / shot on that bull. Like, I've watched the video 100 times. I watched him while we were looking for blood. It was a good shot. It was a good shot. The problem is he hugged the crease a little bit too tight, hit shoulder blade, didn't penetrate like we needed to. So we knew where the shot was. He probably hit one lung. The arrow broke off, had a couple inches in him. At that point, the next 3 or 4 days was nothing but looking for this bull. We did, he didn't bleed a whole lot. It did rain super hard that same night. In fact, I have pictures of us all sitting under a tarp after, I think it rained for 4 or 5 hours that evening. We all sat under a tarp. We talked about it. We rewatched the video over and over again. Good shot. Just hit shoulder blade. Those elk are tough. So the next
just an inch or two the other direction, you got to pass through or dead bull.
So, and that's bow hunting. That's why people say bow hunting sucks. Bow hunting is not for killers. Bow hunting's for hunters. There's a point I gave up rifle hunting. I have enough heads on my wall. I decided I'm going to bow hunt, and I love it. I'll never stop. I will bow hunt till I can't walk into the tree stand anymore. Like I'm okay with not killing because I've killed enough, and unless I need the meat, which I got a cow tag this year. My freezer's full. I don't need the whitetail this year, so I'm going to be a little more picky because I know I have a cow tag in pocket.
Well, one thing that is a pet peeve of mine that really kind of gets after me sometimes is the reality of the situation is this: the more primitive the weapon, the more difficult it is to make the kill.
Absolutely.
Right? We can go all the way back to a slingshot if you want, an atlatl, a homemade recurve, up to a recurve with carbon limbs and so forth. And then you get up to compound bow and crossbow. Like, the more advanced the technology gets, the easier it is to make the kill, right? So as an animal being hunted, I would prefer someone come at me with an atlatl. Right? Yeah. Like, that's my preference.
Yeah.
That increases.
Even not as an animal. If someone was hunting you as a person.
As a person. Yeah.
Give me the slingshot.
Leave the compound at home. Leave the rifle at home for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there is a certain amount of difficulty that comes with the more primitive tool set. Right. But with that, also comes the greater chance of injury. So you're dramatically increasing the fair chase sense of your hunt, right? Yep. Like, the animal has the greatest chance of escape, the more primitive the weapon. Okay. And there's certain fairness to that.
Yeah.
With that, though, comes a cost. And that cost is you're more likely to wound an animal. And I don't care. We can debate this till the cows come home. I hear this all the time from people that say, this is just as lethal as a rifle. Or if a recurve is just as lethal as this, you just got to get closer. Look, we've talked about this on the last show. We're talking about it now. hunting situations are not like shooting a cow in a field.
Yeah.
You're making compromises all the time. There's never the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
There's at some point, there is a calculated risk that you take, but that animal could take one step right as you're shooting. That animal could jump the string
And duck.
Yep. It can do all sorts of things can happen. Your fletching can come off. Your feather can be wet in the rain. Like a lot of things go wrong. You do the best that you can. But to me, I would rather take the chances as an animal. I would rather take the chances of dying a less than pleasant death, but probably not dying at all if you come at me with the atlatl.
Well, and this is the hard part of Cinco. So Casey did get that shot. We spent a little closer.
Yeah.
Is that better?
There you go.
Sweet. So Casey did take that shot. It wasn't perfect. It could have been lethal. We spent 3 days looking for that bull to no avail. We found a few spots of blood. I found a mucus pile with some blood in it. Never could turn that bull up. Casey did keep hunting. After that, we turned up Bobby. We worked Bobby really hard. That didn't play out. Casey killed another bull. It was a nice bull, and he had a great hunt. But in hopes that Cinco was still alive.
Right. That it wasn't a fatal shot.
Yeah. I knew coming out of winter, he didn't show up on my winter cams where he usually is. I never saw his sheds posted, which I watch really well. The area where I guide is probably the most infamous area in Utah for big bulls. There's 3 or 4 units here in Utah that really produce stompers. That unit is one of them. That's why the tags are so expensive, like we talked about. It's tough. So almost every bull I watch, someone picks up the sheds.
Yeah.
Cinco never showed up. He never showed up on my trail cams in winter. I went out this weekend with the specific thing in mind of seeing if Cinco was alive, because he came to the same couple cameras almost to the dates. What's crazy about that bull is he hit this camera on July 4th, 3 years running, and he hit this camera on July 22nd.
Wow.
He had this rotation, and I don't know why that happens. Uno does that to me as well. He shows up almost to the day on the same camera 1 year later. Wow. This is the weirdest thing. So I knew if Cinco was alive, he would have hit those cameras. He would have been on there, and he wasn't there. So
you think he probably died?
Yeah. I mean, who knows if he lived a week, a month? We don't know that he didn't make it to January. He just couldn't make it to where he normally winters. All I know is he didn't make it back up to where he normally summers.
What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on, Casey had a great hunt. This tag, I mean, you just said it takes an auction guy $25,000 to draw.
To buy,
I mean.
And to draw, I think Casey was, as a resident, 17 or 18 years. Most non-residents are 20 plus for that archery tag.
So 17, 18 years he put in for this tag.
I don't blame Casey one bit. I remember when he posted it on Instagram, he showed part of the video. He talked about the heartbreak, the shot, the high hopes. Because Casey had his moment. He had his bull. We did our part. Aaron, my guide that was guiding Casey, did his part. He got him on the bull that we were after.
The opportunity was there.
Right. And so the heartbreak it's hard for people to understand that haven't been there. I don't blame Casey. Utah allows us to keep hunting unless there's a carcass, And so I don't hold fault in that. I understand people's, I understand people's disagreements with somebody keep hunting after they've wounded an animal. I get where they're coming from. At the same time, hunting is hunting. Like, we are there for a purpose. We are there to bring something home, whether your goal is meat, like my cow tag, or your goal's a trophy bull. That harvest objectives are put into place. They take into account there's going to be a few wounded animals. They only give X amount of archery tags because they know 3 of those 7 tags, a guy's going to wound another animal, and that possibly that animal is going to die. And they take into account that if we give out 7 archery tags, it's more than likely 10 are going to die.
They've accounted for the wound rates.
Yeah,
and the kill rates.
That's a personal, ethical stance.
Yeah, Aaron. Aaron Snyder got some questions about that because we were very open about our hunts, and when he was using a recurve that first year, he's out there with a stick bow, and again, it's a primitive weapon. It's not the most accurate, and there's a learning curve. And Aaron, what he could do on the range wasn't as replicable in the field, right? And there was some wounding, right? And we were very open about that, and we talked about it, and the whole thing was live. And Aaron was down and depressed, and very, very depressed, and more down than I've seen him in most situations because he's pretty resilient. Yeah, it takes quite a bit to deter him, but nevertheless, he wounded an animal, and it came down to do you just walk away, or do you keep hunting? Do you know if you killed it or if you just wounded it? Some of those questions are never answered, And so Aaron, people were like, well, I think you should have punched your tag. And I've thought about this a lot. In my opinion, for one thing, it's within the law. It's legal. And Aaron called a number of different fish and game agencies also, by the way, to find out, and to talk to them about it. And they said, if you've wounded an animal and you have no carcass, there's no meat, you get to keep hunting. I mean, that's the bottom line. Yep. And then in other states like Alaska, if you wound a black bear, for example, you're done. Yeah. If there's blood,
you're done.
You're done. Yep. Whether you find it or don't find it, if you draw blood, your hunt's over.
That's how they manage their game.
That's how they do it. That
is their call. They're saying we're giving out 52 tags. That's all we're giving. Yep. You wound an animal, that's already into account. Whether he lives or dies, you are done.
Yep. And other states, though, don't do that. Their management objectives are built around, you going out with your bow and arrow and getting something and bringing it home. To me, if it's within the law and you're hunting responsibly, it's like a new archery hunter. How is he going to learn? Because I'm telling you, he's not going to be successful. Right. There's going to be some failures, especially in archery. And we all kind of like to pretend or ignite or pretend like, nope, every archery shot is fatal and quick. Yeah. No. There's too many variables when you choose a primitive weapon.
Even expert archers, we expect a few of the intermediate hunters to have these things happen. Even experts, guys who's killed over and over and over again, I've seen pull that same mistake, especially on elk. You hug the crease too tight, hit the shoulder blade.
You learn.
And it's a learning curve. And Casey, that's what he took out of that hunt. He's told me more times than I can even count. That was the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. But I learned it. I will never hug that shoulder again. He goes, and I did center a mass just like you said in Montana. That bull died so fast. Yeah. It's a hard lesson to learn.
Well, and I think that it's a personal decision that each hunter needs to make. I have hunted with Anthony, my buddy Anthony. We grew up together. There's been times where he's like, I wounded something and I punched my tag and went home. Even though he could still hunt. And I said, and I've told Anthony, good for you. I'm still hunting, and we've discussed this. And since then, he's come around to a different opinion as well, where he's like, you know what? I do the best I can. I'm extremely moral. I'm extremely cautious and ethical. And I work really hard all year round to be a proficient hunter. And if I do everything that I possibly can, and somehow it still doesn't go right and I can't find it, my goal is to fill the freezer every year with elk meat. And so he goes out and he hunts. Yeah. And to me, at the end of the day, I feel like I am treating the wildlife and my opportunity to hunt fairly if I do that. If I know I'm doing the best I can but it doesn't work out, I'm going to keep hunting. I feel completely okay with that. I think it's very different too when when you've waited for 17 years or 18 years to draw a tag, and then to tell a guy, well, you hug the shoulder too tight, you're done.
Yeah.
That was your chance. And it just happens. I hunted with Jeff Lander last year in Alberta, and I shot a mule deer, and I've talked about this before, and the arrow went through the bushes and ricocheted and hit this mule deer in the neck and went in about 2 inches or so, and then the arrow bounced out and fell on the ground and it ran off.
Yeah.
Well, Lander has a rule, like if you kill a buck, whether you find it or not, if it was a fatal shot, we had video of it. I recorded the whole thing, so that was nice. So I was like, it obviously didn't die, so Jeff let me keep hunting. But if I don't find it, but it looks fatal, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. That's Jeff's rule as a guide.
And that's okay.
And so
you got to accept those terms when you pull into camp.
But I still would have taken that shot again. I felt like I was doing everything I could. I was making what I thought was a really good shot. Yeah. And who knows? I mean, in that second situation, it would have been, in my mind the whole time, believe me, I'm thinking, in every scenario, only take a shot that, and this is regardless of whether I'm with Lander or not. Take a shot where there's going to be a quick kill and I'm be able to find it, right? I'm also balancing that with the conditions that are presented in front of me at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're playing the two, and I'm going, well, I'm 99% sure, 95% sure I'm going to make this shot. And then knowing full well, I accept the consequences, which are, if I don't make the shot and the buck gets away and I've wounded it, I'm done. Mm-hmm. My hunt's over. It's like day 2 of a 7-day hunt. It's over. You accept that responsibility, and you have confidence in your abilities, and you take that shot. And in spite of all of those scenarios, I still blew it, on this buck and didn't make it. But I was able to keep hunting because I knew I didn't kill it in that circumstance. But I feel like that's hunting. You learn and you move forward. You do the best you can ethically. But if it's legal, I don't get on someone's case. Well, they decide to keep hunting.
There's no sense in pointing fingers and calling someone a good person or a bad person. Everyone's going to have a moral stance on every decision they make. You're going to have your own opinion. You're going to have your own position. I mean, we could talk about it forever. I don't know how far you want to dive in. We could talk about this guy who just got the grizzly tag. I mean, do we want to go there? Do we want to talk about elk?
I say we move back to elk. Okay. So Cinco, what are some of the things that you've kind of touched on it? That behavior you kind of dialed into right away because he repeated the same loop.
Yep. Well, he just hit the same cameras. I actually never got his loop down.
But you ended up hunting him during the rut, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of early season. What went wrong? Like, I assume.
Well, we weren't hunting him. So Casey was actually. So, my approach to hunting bulls early is I get a pattern down and we ambush hunt them. So I had Casey on a tree stand, and the 2 bulls that were coming in was Chunky Monkey, who we're going to talk about. He's probably the most requested bull that everyone wanted to hear about. And Bobby was killed later, that rifle hunt. Unfortunately, we had dogs run through chasing bears under his stand the first 2 days of the hunt. I mean, some 40-something dogs and 6 guys chasing bears under his stand, which I just.
Why does Utah allow that?
I don't know.
Especially on such a premium tag.
Right. Especially when guys have waited like they've waited and hunt.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it was bad. So we had to wait to turn those bulls up again. Mm-hmm. It took us a few more days, and then he got back on Bobby, and then that didn't pan out. And then he left to go antelope hunting, and he came back. Well, here's Cinco in this area, and he's rutting hard in there, and he's the top dog in that spot. Mm-hmm. So that's when Casey's sights turned from Bobby to Cinco. Inches wise, they were probably the same. Like, they were really close. I mean, Bobby was a 9x10. Had a lot of points. Was kind of narrow. God, these giant hanger thirds. Just awesome bull. Killed by Sterling Hill during the rifle hunt, 200 yards in front of me.
Dang.
I'm still brokenhearted. Casey turned his sights to Cinco because here we have another pattern, and he's running cows and he's hitting this spot, and we already had a stand in that place, and he shifted his game and got his shot. Him and Aaron did an excellent job of working that bull. Got it, got the shot, didn't pan out. So, I was really sad he didn't turn up. I knew when we were looking for blood that there was that possibility. Here we are. I'm sad he's gone, but that's part of the game. That's what we do.
Cinco.
All the same, that they're an animal meant to be harvested and eaten. One's got to die for another one to get big. There's always that. There has to be a balance, and they expect so many to die. Otherwise, our numbers keep growing, and we can't have them grow. Mm-hmm. They've got to shrink.
Yeah.
Like they can't. In fact, they're giving away more cow tags because our bull tags are worth money, and it allows them to have more cattle, and it's money, money, money. It's a hard balance. I'm glad I don't have to make that call that our division does. Yeah. Because it's a hard balance. But in the end, I'm sad he's gone. I'm sure he's gone. Yeah. But I'm sad about it.
What if he turned up though?
If he turns up
like a Rivers Divide 2, like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. He hugged the shoulder too tight. Yeah. But he's still alive.
He's walking around with a limp and a funny left horn.
That's right.
I mean, it would be awesome, but the reality is I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. So. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Donnie Vincent, and that's just another example of you do the best you can. The goal is not to wound the buck, but,
Our goal is to kill and kill ethically, but it doesn't always pan out that way. That's why it's hunting. That's why they're managed.
So, all right, let's jump onto this bull, Chunky Monkey. Okay, but let's do that on the next show. I was
going to say, because we could finish out Bobby.
Okay,
or we could dive into a whole nother one with Chunky.
Yeah, let's finish out Bobby, and then we'll have some more dinner. Okay, and then we'll do Chunky Monkey.
Yeah, let's do Bobby real fast. He's another bull. He's a dead bull. So, and I never. So the thing about Bobby is I never targeted him. I started getting pictures of him in 2014, and he was probably a 370 bull at that point. So he was fairly old as he was, but he had very, very signature look. Narrow.
And why the name Bobby?
Okay, so this is the deal with Bobby, and it's a good story. So Bobby, so he showed up. I didn't think much of him. We had two other bigger bulls in the area. Both have been killed. One was 417. One was 403. Mm-hmm. They were hanging out where Bobby was. And Gritty. Gritty was in there as well.
Cool.
So Bobby was kind of down on the list. We didn't pay attention to him. 14, 15, 16, he came out as a big 6x7 and just had that old bull presence. Here he is at 9.5 years old probably and just looked like a giant. So we actually, opening morning, the bull we meant for Donna Pickett didn't show up. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was a morning bull. The only way I could hunt that bull is in the mornings. So that evening I took her into where Bobby was hanging out.
And Bobby has the name Bobby at this point?
No, we called him Pretty Boy at this point.
Okay.
The reason why is in 15. So in 2015, Bobby didn't rut. And he didn't leave 3 cameras. Like he had this little rotation that was only about 3/4 of a mile.
Really?
I was in there hunting. We were bugling. We were calling. We were in position to kill that bull.
Okay, but he didn't rut?
He didn't rut. He didn't bugle.
How big was he?
Pushing 380.
Really?
He's big. Yeah. And it's just funny because he wouldn't even bugle.
Just didn't have any confidence?
I walked in to pull that camera during the muzzleloader hunt. It's September 28th. The bulls were still screaming. I was actually carrying a bugle. I wasn't hunting because my hunters were done. I don't do muzzleloader very often. I'm carrying a bugle. I'm walking down the ridge screaming, nothing. I get to right where I drop into one of Bobby's cameras, right? And Bobby's laying there chewing his cud. Didn't give 2 cents that I was there screaming.
No cows
And so I
nearby.
just figured
Nothing.
he was gay. So at that point, we called him Pretty Boy. This is the gay bull that doesn't rut. We call him Pretty Boy. Donna has a gay brother named Bobby.
And hence the name.
Bobby was a better name than Pretty Boy.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it turns out, so Casey hunted Bobby. The dogs ran. We lost him. He turns up in the rifle hunt. I know where he's at.
Wait. Does Bobby exhibit rutting behavior the next year?
Well, that was the year he died, and I didn't know. I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Okay.
So here he turns up. He didn't run cows all through the every picture of him. He's alone during the whole archery hunt, which goes into September 15th. He should have been rutting.
So you don't think he was just like nailing a single cow here and there?
I never got a picture with one cow. So
was he intact? Like, did he have something come loose?
He was never broke too bad. He never.
Like his testicles were all rocking.
So this is what happens. So we pull in. We got him kind of rotating on the spot. I know where he's at. I bring my rifle hunter. I'm working him. He's screaming, bugling, but he's running away. And I'm like, golly, he doesn't typically have cows. I don't know why he's running from me. Like, we're in his bubble. He should be pulling my way. He's running. I'm like, I tell my hunter, I'm like, we're going to run because he's headed to a clearing and we're going to shoot him. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm telling you, I know right where he's going. So we take off running. We hadn't gone 40 yards.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
And I'm thinking someone shot another bull. He hadn't made it to the clearing yet. There's no way. But I walked down to the clearing. There he is, dead. No hunter around. I'm like, what the heck? Somebody shot my bull. And anyway, Sterling had shot him, made a great play on him. His name's Sterling Hill. He comes up behind. Oh, hey, Ryan. And I'm like, yeah, good job.
Thanks.
Good job, Sterling. Like, let me help you prop him up. Let's take some pictures. And I did. I
chased him right to Sterling.
I was honestly just happy for him. Sterling was a good guy. I took pictures. I helped him prop it up. They cut him up, packed him out, done and done. I'm still friends with Sterling. Whatever. The funny thing about Bobby, so this is what I turned out. When we were caping him off, we're pulling the hide off. He has a hole in the roof of his mouth, the size of a tine, going from the top of his mouth and coming out by his eye.
Oh, wow.
So I believe that year that he didn't move, he had gotten hurt fighting, and he was infected, and he was sick. And that's why he didn't move, and he didn't bugle. I'm guessing
he took a tine in the wrong spot.
He took a tine in the mouth, and he was hurting bad. And I called it. I bullied him. I called him the gay bull, and
harassment
when he was just hurt, and But that's where Bobby got his name, and I mean that's the demise of Bobby. But he was a cool bull. He was a fun bull to get on camera. I'm always sad when they die, but I always love having history with them. And Sterling, we had a booth at the expo this year within Yeti and Tax Campground, where I lined up a bunch of the bulls we'd killed. Well, Sterling brought Bobby in, which meant a lot to me to have him there, just because that bull's sentimental.
That history and all that,
yeah.
That's super cool, man. That's a big tine to take.
Yeah,
up behind the eyeball.
Oh. Well, to go in the mouth and come out by the eye. And you couldn't see it until his eyes were out.
Like a lucky stroke, because you got a cheekbone, you got a lot of hard things that tine's not going to pierce. That right there will make you decide whether you want to rut twice or not.
Oh, man. Well, and that the hole goes through the sinus. My sinuses I complain about all the time anyway. Can you imagine having a hole drilled through your mouth? All that,
Dude, that's
pain.
brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
See, life's brutal.
Oh.
We're talking about ethics and bad shot placement, but I can't tell you how many bulls I see gored to death every year because our state's said, well, we got to drop X amount of elk, so let's kill cows and keep our bulls alive because we get more money for our bulls. And now I'm seeing bulls getting gored to death.
Because the competition goes way higher, they're going to fight for the right to breed.
And so, what's funny is, so I have another bull sweeps. I know we got to wrap this up, but sweeps 410 type typical. We called him sweeps because he had 64-inch beams.
Jeez.
Now, I have never killed a bull with those kind of beams, but I know what his beams were. They were unreal. Sweeps died because 3 bulls ganged up on him and gored him to death. He went into a group of trees, opening morning of the rifle hunt.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of commotion. There was a lot of cows. Sweeps came back out without his cows, missing 2 tines or 3 tines and a hole in his side. I mean, it looked like his hide was hanging down. He had a great big hole in there, and he sat there for 2.5 hours with his head down. Dead bull.
Over.
Dead bull.
Yeah.
And he was dead not because of an unethical shot. He was dead, 1, because of poor game management, bad decisions. He was dead, 2, because life out there is brutal.
Yeah.
They are going to die anyway.
Yeah.
Whether it's from an arrow, whether it's from a coyote, whether it's from a bear. These animals don't die in hospital beds surrounded by their families. These animals die in pain every single time.
Yeah.
None of them die just going to sleep.
Easily.
They're either starving to death, they're taken down by a predator, man or cougar. They die a horrible death regardless because that is their life. So there is no reason for people to get up in arms over a bad arrow. It happens. You can take your own personal stance, however you want to take it.
Yeah.
But understand, they're going to die in pain.
Yeah. And in fact, I mean, in general, the goal is to make it the most efficient, clean kill as possible. Yep. And it's like Aldo Leopold says, I believe it was him, like, what I deliver to an animal is far better than the weather and fang and tooth and claw.
Ooh.
There's other ways an animal can die. And the way we do it as a hunter is far less painful. In general, usually it's the most, probably one of the better ways to deliver death to an animal.
Can you imagine being suffocated by the mouth of a cougar?
No,
put his mouth over your mouth.
That's not how I want to go.
No,
I want to go.
I can't imagine
with an arrow through the lungs.
Anything worse. Yeah. Give me an arrow to the heart any day.
I don't like the idea of that kind of domination.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, it's degrading. Or a wolf eating you while you're still alive, or a bear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting story. I shot a moose. I'm going to publish the film in a couple of weeks. It's part of this series that we're launching around August 12th, I think, is where we're tentatively putting it out. That moose got gored in the shoulder, and it went behind the shoulder blade and, like, I don't know, a foot or so up behind the neck. And then when we were skinning it out and got it on the ground, we saw the puncture wound, pulled the hide back, and then Aaron Snyder was going to cut around the wound, but he kind of cut right into the wound, and it was like a giant pimple, and just
stinks.
Over a gallon of pus came out.
Pimple popper video.
Gallon, at least a gallon of pus came out of that wound, and it smelled worse than just about anything I've smelled in my life. Like, Aaron was dry heaving there, trying not to throw up. And it almost got him a couple of times. I posted it on Instagram. It's like one of my highest viewed videos. But that wound right there. And then I got my bear, right? Or my moose, and I brought it home, and Aaron shot his moose, same bear, moose a few days later. Aaron's moose tastes like, it melts in your mouth, and its flavor, texture, it's just the most tender, delicious moose. It's what you think about when you think moose.
Yeah.
My moose is like shoe leather, genuine shoe leather. The flavor is good, but you got to slow cook that thing for like days. It's so brutally rough, and I think it's just that injury.
I heard,
and the infection.
Soak it in milk. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I think that really pulls
takes the toxins out of it, but that sucks.
It doesn't. It's just not tender.
So, and this is the thing. Even though you dealt the final blow, that wound might have been his downfall.
Yeah.
Like, in all reality, your stalk might have been easier. You didn't deliver death to that moose, other than you did the final blow, maybe.
Right.
Does that make sense? He still died by nature.
He could have been dead on his feet right then. It's just 2 months out.
And it can look like we're trying to justify death. I don't care. That's what I do. That's my job. That's what I live for, is to provide that, because I have this drive inside me to do that. Just that.
Ryan, like that film I just came out with called Consuming Life. Mm-hmm. The reality is we all consume life, and whether it's the animal you personally hunted or a chicken that you bought at Costco, it's still you're still consuming life to live. And so as a hunter,
I don't care if it's lettuce.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't have eyes and ears, how do we know it's not conscious?
Right. I mean, there's
some plants still make decisions. They still change color in order to keep people from picking them.
That's exactly right. Like life consumes life, period. Whether it's a plant or an animal. To me, it's at that point, let's, as conscientious, sentient human beings, let's consume life in the most ethical and humane and responsible way that we can while we're on this planet. And I think that's where hunting, to me, comes into play.
Right.
It's the way that the world has come to be, the way I know it to be today, is by hunting, gathering, and eating. I mean, there's no other way around it, Ryan. Either you choose to not consume life and die, or you consume life, but you do so responsibly.
I kill one animal to fill my freezer, or two. Mm-hmm. Like I kill a whitetail every year. That's my preferred meat source. Dude, it's my favorite.
The whitetails I shot in Texas and Oklahoma tasted like candy. When I posted on Instagram that they were way better than my moose, people were up in arms. Like, how dare you say whitetail is better than moose? I'm telling you, it was better than moose by a landslide.
You need a corn-fed Nebraska,
yeah.
Iowa deer.
I think that Oklahoma deer was pretty dang corn-fed.
All the same, like I kill one animal or two, say, to fill my freezer. And that is sufficient for me and my family. Who's to say I'm more wrong than the vegan who eats soy, who kills who knows how many animals when those farmers, do pesticides in their fields or mow over X amount of rats and mice who live in there, or the birds who's nested in there. Like, who's to say, they might have taken 500 lives in that one field.
Absolutely.
Am I wrong in taking one animal, or are they better than me? I'm not going to say either. I don't care. I know what I care
in the sense that I want to do it as responsibly as possible.
Yeah, and in your perspective, you are taking the most responsible manner you can. You are being the best you can be. That I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to demean them because they think they're doing their better way. It's like, okay, like.
Well, I think that you have to actually follow your thought process to its conclusion. Like your ideas to their conclusion. Mm-hmm. So, for example, this grizzly bear dude who bought the tag in Wyoming, who was one of 7 people that drew the tag in Wyoming out of, I think, 7,000, or one of 10, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds
out of 7,000 applicants. Mm-hmm. He's part of that shoot 'em with a camera movement. His whole goal was to draw a tag, take it away from a hunter, so he couldn't hunt grizzly bears, and then go out and photograph it instead of shoot it.
On paper, not a bad plan.
Yeah, on paper, not a bad plan.
Like, without thinking the whole process through.
Right.
Yeah, you're doing the good job.
Right. So,
but let's think it through a little bit more.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, management objectives still need to be met. At the end of the day, like, I don't think he's naive enough to believe that action is really going to have an immediate impact on saving bears, right? Because there's quotas and all these other things that go into it. But it did get him in front of Fox News, and it did get him major headlines, and it did get him applauded by the public, the mainstream media, by saying what a good dude you are, and help him sell prints of photos and other things, right? But let's follow this whole hunters have no right to hunt ideology to its conclusion. Uh-huh. It's like, okay, let's say we say you can't kill any more animals as hunters. Where does like the 300 million pounds of whitetail deer meat get replaced from when you ban it? And what do you do when they're eating crops and getting hit by cars on every corner? Like, at some point, killing and eating the resource is like the most responsible.
What's our increase on beef going to be when that 300 million pounds has to go into, like, we'll have to buy more beef.
And you'll have to replace it, right, from some.
And now we're paying $40 a pound for some hamburger.
And not only that, you're bulldozing.
So increased.
You're bulldozing country and space where natural animals live and native and wild animals live in wild places. So you can put domestic cattle in there in an unnatural way, so you can augment or replace that food supply you're saying is ethically or immoral to kill. Right. It's like none of it makes sense. If you follow all of these things to their conclusion, they go nowhere. If you say, well, you shouldn't ever hunt predators, you should only hunt ungulates. It's like, look, what do you think predators eat? Yeah. Okay? At some point, if you say no grizzly bears, no wolves, no cougars, none of those get hunted ever, because you're not going to eat that anyway, or something along those lines. Well, obviously, they're going to wipe out the ungulate food supply, or at least reach an equilibrium.
And then what do they do? And
at that point, they're going to have a die-off because there's not enough prey source.
Bears eat
bears.
But
in the meantime,
wolves eat people.
In the meantime,
so let's get rid of one food source.
But in the meantime, where this goes is it just doesn't make any sense at all, because then you just effectively took away the entire elk food supply and the deer food supply from the human aspect of this, which it's a pet peeve of mine that people completely ignore the human aspect of game management. Yeah. Like, we eat it, people. It's part of our food supply.
We share the same hillsides. We kill them just by building our homes on the side hill.
And here's the last piece before we wrap this up, and I want to just say this. I'm hungry. Before, the deal is this. I truly believe that when someone goes out and harvests their own food, like when they go out and they kill an animal and they bring it home, that their true and genuine appreciation for wildlife increases 1,000,000-fold, to the point where they're like, I want to actually put dollars into this area, and I care dramatically. I'm going to fight the loss of public land, or I'm going to fight the loss of this wild country because I care about the animals that live in it. If you only consume beef, chicken, and stuff at Kung Pao, Chinese, whatever,
you treat it like it was a fruit that it grew on a tree.
And you treat that meat like that, but you also don't value those vast tracts of wilderness where those animals are, because they don't impact you.
Right.
They're not something you consume, and it's not an experience that you cherish each season or each year. I feel like
you're not making any.
You're not connecting,
decisions. Right? You're not making any hard decisions. You're not questioning your compass. Like when you treat your food like it's a product that was just placed there or grew there for you, there will never be that connect. There will never be appreciation, and then all of a sudden you get where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Everyone has these anthropomorphic ideas of what.
Well, it's this cuddly bear.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. The hierarchy and the favoritism of animals is a real pet peeve. Like, I get lit up when you start talking about how we shouldn't hunt bears or cougars, or when someone gets all sentimental about a bear. It's a bear, so it's different. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your idea, but to me, it is not fair. It is not fair to place the bear in front of the chicken.
Wow.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. They should all be managed equally. Mm-hmm. I just feel it's morally wrong to put certain animal life is a life, mm-hmm. and to put some animal life above other animal life when the populations are stable. Like, I get it when it's an endangered species. That thing gets prioritized. But when it's not an endangered species and it's now fallen under management, and biologists are now guiding the direction of the species and helping meet all these different objectives, at that point, I'm like, do not run animal favoritism by me. I have no patience for it. Right. You tell me cougars shouldn't be hunted because they're cougars. I have no patience for it, especially if you go and you're eating a chicken, some fish, and some pork. Like, why are those animals lesser?
Yeah.
So to me, I just get irritated. And what you're saying with the bear is they shouldn't be hunted ever. Why? It's that favoritism that I don't like, because by favoring that bear, you're hurting, like, let's say, the endangered caribou population in Idaho. I don't even know if there's any left. You're endangering certain populations of elk and certain moose populations that are struggling mightily.
Right.
So in this favoritism for the cute and cuddly bear, you're willing to kill all these other animals that are struggling to maintain a population, a sustainable population. That pisses me off.
Well, no, and the funny thing is sportsmen are always the first. Like if someone said, in order for the elk population to survive, we have to stop hunting them, I guarantee you, everyone I know, myself included, would never hunt them until the population was back to where it needed to be. I guarantee that we would be the first to feed them through winter to help them survive, because hunters are the ones, and it's been proven. I mean, I don't remember, was it 90 something, like Wisconsin said, we're shutting down the deer hunt this year. The winter's too bad. Our animals are starving.
Yeah.
Like, we are in danger of losing every whitetail in the state of Wisconsin. And sportsmen were the first ones to start donating alfalfa and laying out food for the deer to help them survive that winter. And then for 3 years, they shut down the deer hunt and nobody hunted, because they cared about the population. So they wanted to see them come back. And Wisconsin has this amazing deer herd to this day because of the decision that hunters made to help them survive. You can't say that these people don't care, that they're heartless killers.
But this goes back to that post I made the other day about it. It was like, we don't do a good job of telling that story as hunters.
No, we don't.
We don't like to get political. We don't want to mess around with, like, it just bugs us. We just want to do our thing and enjoy the outdoors. The problem is it is political.
It is.
There is a battle, and a battlefront and a war that's being waged for public lands and for wildlife. And if you're not engaged, we're going to lose.
I think a lot of hunters are afraid to be the angry feminist.
I agree.
We don't want to stand.
I don't give a damn anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care. Think of me as the angry feminist. I don't care. Like, I just read this book, Wilderness Warrior, with Theodore Roosevelt, and it's like, was he painted like that? Oh, yeah. But guess what? We wouldn't have what we have today.
Absolutely.
If he wasn't willing to be called names and be labeled as the political psycho, the socialist president.
They still make comical cartoons of Teddy Roosevelt because of.
And yet he's on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Because he kicked butt. Because he stood for what was right ultimately. And I think we're at a position in our country today where there needs to be a revival, a resurgence of helping our nation, helping our people value wildlife in a true and sincere way, not in this Coca-Cola polar bear way, like this conceptual way. Like,
well, the thing about now that's different than TR's time is that everyone has a voice. It's unreal. I have this Instagram following, and I don't know why. I'm not that special. I post cool bulls. That's why.
Yeah.
Like I have some like really cool pictures, but in all reality,
you're an elk fanatic.
I went to college like everyone else. I have a degree. I have a
but you have a voice.
I manage. That's the thing. Everyone has this platform. We all have a soapbox we can stand on. Now, whether you're talking to 300 people or 40,000 people or 2 million people, you still have a platform that X amount of people can hear. Maybe only 2 or 10 or 100 of those people hear you, but maybe that gets them moving.
Yeah.
The gears always start to shift slow.
I think what choice do we have? Right. Because you can sit here and say, well, it's not going to make a difference. Or you can say, I believe that everything I do makes a difference. And I choose the other. I choose to say everything I do can make a difference, and everything that other hunters do can make a difference. So if we actually put in the effort and start fighting for the things that we think are right, and we don't worry about, the name calling for being political, I think we could have tremendous impact, especially if we stand by each other in solidarity. At some point I decided a while ago that I didn't care anymore. People can hate, people can call me whatever. I'm going to talk about and say the things that I think are true and important. and let the people hate.
Well, I'm not that commendable. I'm glad you are. I need to.
You're getting there.
I apologize. Because the thing is like not everyone can
Articulate.
They don't have the pieces put together as well as you.
Yeah.
A lot of people's ethical stance is influenced by other people, and the pieces aren't totally fit.
Well, I'm not saying I'm always right either.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all either, but like you take the rocker guy, Nugent.
Yeah.
You take Nugent. I listened to him on Rogan the other day, and wild ideas just flowing and crazy. And his position is perfect in my eyes. Where he stands on what he does agrees very well with what I do. The problem is with Nugent's stance is his delivery.
Right.
Like he's like, you don't believe in me? F you. And for me, I'm like, you said that perfect. And why did you have to give me that last line?
Yeah. No.
And so like, we need more people that understand all the pieces of that cog to get it rolling the right way. Rather, because the second he said that,
he lost a lot.
The momentum he had going fell off.
Yeah.
And we need more people who understand all the pieces of that vision to move it forward.
You're right.
Otherwise we get this bad reputation, this Cecil the Lion like tarnish on what we do.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure the right people are in place to put their voice out.
Well, somebody mentioned the other day, like our own redneckery comes into play and undermines us. Like our own community comes in and says, well, F that guy because he's an idiot and so on, instead of bringing forth facts and statistics or information or a well-articulated argument that sort of, I think science-based arguments go a long way.
Yeah.
I also think moral-based arguments go a long way. And we have both on our side as hunters. So I encourage people to get familiar with the moral stance for why you do what you do, because people don't care that you hunt, Ryan. They care why you hunt.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So if you have a good moral stance for why you do what you do, which we covered a little bit earlier, there's lots of reasons and a lot of morals supporting things that come into play for hunting. But then you also have the scientific statistical ones as well, where you can follow some of those arguments to their conclusion and go, okay, this makes a lot of sense. A monocultural, like a monolithic field of soybeans that stretches on for 500 miles in the middle of, the continent is probably not good for nature. It's probably not how nature was meant to be. And that sort of environment probably has some negative downsides to it. And if that's what it takes to develop, certain protein supply, then, you can use science to talk about these things but I think we should stick to both the moral argument and the scientific one.
I agree.
And learn it. And I think everyone in hunting is qualified to do that. And I hope more and more there's this new age of hunter that's coming forward and
absolutely.
And like you said, everyone has an audience, so that everyone has that opportunity to participate. And I think it's impactful. So let's eat, dude.
Let's do it. I'm hungry.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Next one, we're going to cover Chunky Monkey.
Chunky Monkey.
That makes me want some Ben & Jerry's.
So bad.
All right, folks. Stay gritty. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.